A word from our sponsors. Streaming is now bigger than broadcast and cable, but we all watch our favorite shows and movies on hundreds of different devices and apps. Iris TV makes it easier for advertisers to target viewers with precision at scale across all these platforms. They do this by enabling AI to analyze millions of videos from the leading publishers to create the largest contextual data marketplace for streaming. By building their campaigns with Iris-enabled data, brands like Carl's Jr. are driving higher lifts in awareness and sales, while publishers are generating higher yield. Learn more about iris.tv and explore their private marketplace deals by visiting iris.tv/PMP. Again, visit at iris.tv/PMP. Welcome to the AdTechGod Pod, your window into the world of advertising technology and the people behind it. I'm your host, AdTechGod. Welcome back to another episode of the AdTechGod Pod, the podcast where we hear fascinating stories and insights from the female leaders in advertising. Today's guest is Stacy Bohrer. She is a dynamic leader and is currently the vice president of buyer development at OpenX. Her career in the adtech industry spans more than 15 years, with a rich background that includes impactful roles at Crisp, iHeart, and Kinetic Social. But Stacy's most notable tenure was at the trade desk, where she spent nearly 8 years as the regional vice president. During her time there, she played a huge role in shaping the company's growth and success, earning her a stellar reputation in the industry. I'm particularly excited to meet Stacy today because she came highly recommended by many mutual friends, and I'm eager to dive in and learn about her knowledge and experience in adtech. Stacy, I'm super excited to have you here, and welcome to the AdTechGod Pod.
Hi, AdTechGod. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Congrats on the latest news and
Thank you.
Becoming a part of Marketecture's family.
Thank you. It's been an awesome time so far. It's been incredible working with Ari and Jeremy Bloom. He's been incredible.
I've known Jeremy for a while, and he's definitely at the top of my list. And in terms of Marketecture, the second an episode comes out, I'm probably the first person to listen.
He's such a nice person, like genuinely, like just a kind person through and through. Like it's pretty incredible. Don't you ever get mad or frustrated? He's pretty level-headed and like just super thoughtful with everything he does. So I'm happy to have him as a partner.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see what you guys do.
Let's see. It's just starting out. It's going to be good. That's for sure.
Just begun.
It's going to be fun. Stacy, I wanted to kick this off and wanted to get a better understanding of your background. I obviously read off a very quick summary of your experience in the industry, but I'd love to hear it from you and how you started and how you got to, working at OpenX.
Ooh, that's a story. Okay. Well, it started in 2006, always with, it depends on who you know, right? So I was right out of school, graduated from Kent State University with a major in communication. And what does that mean? I wasn't sure. I went to visit my grandma Elaine in the nursing home one day, and she introduced me to her friend, who was Betsy Adelstein's mother-in-law. Betsy Adelstein has been in the industry. She's a legend. She was at Point Roll forever and then at Flash Talking. And she introduced me to the Chicago Interactive Marketing Association. And that's where I found my first job, which was with Fox. I was there for 8 months as an assistant, learning how to traffic creative, how to report on clicks, because that's about all we did in 2006. And I followed Betsy to Point Roll shortly thereafter as a sales planner, but it killed me not to be the one selling. So I quickly, even though Point Roll was printing money at the time, for those who don't know what Point Roll is, it was a rich media company later bought by Gannett. I went to Clear Channel Radio, iHeart Radio, and sold as their first digital salesperson. So I went door to door, knocking on doors to say, hi, I'm Stacy. Like, maybe you want to advertise on kiss1035.com. Long story short, my first big break came when Steve Dipsky, who works at Oracle now, hired me. And this was to call on national brands at Kinetic Social. I couldn't believe I was the one that got to talk to OMD and Mindshare instead of being behind the scenes. So life was good until it wasn't. I was also selling social, but also a platform built on top of AppNexus. And that limited me from what I could deliver to clients because of the way the system was built. Enter Trade Desk. A recruiter called and said, this company is unbelievable. You have to talk to them. Long story short, they had the reporting that I couldn't give my clients. They had the team that I only wished for. And my instincts were, you got to follow this gut. And so I did. I was at the Trade Desk for 8 years, saw the rocket ship being built and take off. And I'm really proud of where they are today. But ultimately, it was my stop at the train station. I got off, went to Crisp for a short period of time, but ultimately landed at OpenX, which has been a year and a half now, and they've exceeded my expectations.
So you worked at a DSP and now you're working at an SSP. What do you feel is like the biggest difference in how you're interacting with brands and buyers in market?
The biggest surprise has been how similar it is. I'm still talking to clients about demanding more transparency. I'm still talking to clients about their targeting, but this time it's more about curation than it's ever been before.
And do you think that's the path moving forward? Like, do you think that, curating the right type of inventory for your buyers and I guess moving away from an open exchange buys path? Or, this can be your personal opinion or OpenX, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think curation is the future. I think clients want control. And so if you take OpenX, for example, we eliminated all MFA from anywhere but the open exchange. There's way more going on in the open exchange. You have less control over what you get unless you include a whitelist. Our deals are so carefully curated. The data is all transparent. You see exactly the path from which every impression was purchased. It's all direct. There are so many benefits to the curation side rather than open exchange.
I'm a supporter of the curation. I think I wouldn't say as direct as you can get, as transparent. Direct should just be a standard, to be honest. There shouldn't be a hop. There really shouldn't be a hop. If you don't have the budget, then you should be able to access the inventory from a DSP. If you don't have the minimums needed on some of these smaller DSPs in market to pay the $500 a month or $1,500 a month, then you shouldn't be doing much but media buying.
We eliminated all indirect traffic for all CTV, and our CTV publishers have seen 25% increase as a result. So the market wants direct.
I like how we just totally went off tangent, but I think there's so much more, A, transparency, B, better performance. I think, C, you're also talking about reduction of costs and server loads that you have to maintain on your SSP. You're talking about, improvement on your inventory quality and dealing with IVT. There's just so many benefits to doing it. You don't have to have 50,000 sites. You can have a select number of good sites that you've vetted and are brand safe and good that you can provide to your clients. I just think it's the right way personally.
Absolutely. And OpenX has a huge marketplace of data partnerships as well. So something that was really surprising to me when I got here was that the deals we're curating have data associated, behavioral targeting applied before it hits the DSP. So every impression that we bid on is already determined as relevant.
Again, I think from my perspective, that's the route I would go.
Yeah.
So I want to hear this because I think this is the most interesting to me. So you've worked at OpenX doing buyer development. You worked at a DSP, which is the Trade Desk, and you were there quite early on. I'm trying to recall if you're LinkedIn, but I think it was 2013 or 14.
You got it.
How did that change over the 8 years that you were there? Because you really did see growth. In 2013, it was probably just Jeff and a few others hanging out, building a DSP.
I always say I learned more in those 8 years than I could have possibly learned at Harvard Business School. I used to say to the team, if you are paying attention, journal when you get home. You are watching an organization scale faster than you could possibly hope for. So that's what I saw. I saw that what the organization needed in 2013 looked very, very different than 2015 and 17 and 19, et cetera. Probably the biggest takeaway was that you have different needs, and the greatest strength I can give an organization or hire for is the ability to be agile. If you think about it, and I say this to my team at OpenX right now because we're scaling very quickly. In 2013, when I got to Trade Desk, I covered the whole Midwest region. And then I hired someone and I had half the region and then a fraction and a fraction, yet the numbers kept going up. And I always say that is a good thing. There's 4 symptoms of scale. 1, your number gets bigger. 2, someone more senior probably comes into your life. 3, your book changes. And 4, you're expected to be more agile than ever before. And that was my biggest takeaway from Trade Desk.
Do you feel that in your career you've spent really the longest time there, but even at iHeart, working with audio, Kinetic Social, what do you think was like the biggest challenge or success that you faced, moving from, Trade Desk to others? What do you feel like you learned from that experience?
The biggest challenge, I think, for anyone is to show up authentically. This may be cliche, that's my fear, but everyone talks about being authentic and being vulnerable at work, but that truly requires bravery. And every day I look at my calendar and I'm like, oh gosh, and there's something that's going to scare me. And being on your AdTechGod pod today was that thing. But if you can build a muscle that says, I'm going to do it anyway and practice resiliency, then the rest will follow. And that was a challenge. That's an ongoing challenge, but that's also my biggest strength, which is getting up and doing it anyway.
What do you think was the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge, you've got to hire people who can do all those things, who know that being direct is kind, who know that our mission is bigger than any single individual, and they're in it for the team, who has vision. I remember we had a rule at Trade Desk early on, no jerks. Like, you cannot hire a jerk. And I remember interviewing someone that I knew he would crush it, but I couldn't hire him because he wouldn't have the long term in mind. So that was the biggest challenge. And then the biggest success on the same coin on the other side is I've hired some incredibly strong leaders that to this day are leading teams and the organization there, both at Trade Desk and OpenX. And I'm so incredibly proud. You look at someone like Rich Cates or Katie Friday, and my instincts were spot on. These are special people and they've risen the ranks. And that's been both the most humbling and rewarding part of my career.
What do you do when you look at a candidate and you're interviewing them? Like, how do you know inside that you're picking the right person? Like, what is that thing that just sparks in your head and says, hey, you know what? This is the person I need.
Self-awareness. I think it's the foundation of everything. How much are you willing to look in the mirror truly and better yourself? It's really hard to help someone grow who's not willing to do the hard work and be vulnerable enough to know where they need to improve. And I think that's the number one thing I look for, that and overall EQ.
You say self-awareness. I like that one. That's actually a really good one. One thing and I'm not going to say the company because I don't like to say it, but I interviewed with a company, I want to say it's going on 3 years now, made it to the final round. It was like one of these like crazy panels of 5 people back to back to back to back where you're exhausted. Most people will know what company I'm talking about when I say it. And then they go into a specific way of answering questions that are asked. And one of the biggest challenges I had was they wanted you to speak to it as to I. So I did this, I did that, I did this. I was responsible for that. And I kept saying we. We crushed it by doing this at the company. We crushed it by building that product. This team built it and we went out into market and made it available. We did really well and they hated it and they didn't hire me. And I remember one of the people who I interviewed with is now a friend, like after the fact, like a year later. And he said that they like it to be all about me. And that's just the culture. I'm glad I didn't go because I would have hated that.
Exactly. I don't know the organization you're talking about, but my guess is they're not in hyper growth because.
Oh, they are. And I won't say who because I just don't like to do that. But I was shocked. I was like, it's a very cutthroat, me culture.
I might know who you're talking about now.
Yeah. They're in hypergrowth for sure. A word from our sponsors. Whether or not Google ever decides to deprecate cookies, they continue to loom over us, putting future revenue growth in doubt. LiveIntent's Hero, Helping Identity Reveal Opportunity, offers a solution by transforming non-addressable audiences into addressable inventory using first-party data. Hero is scalable, interoperable, and integrated with major industry players, providing a robust framework for navigating the post-cookie era. See how Hero can help you quickly unlock your inventory at liveintent/hero. That's liveintent/HIRO.
Well, I just find that the end of the story might not show that, because unless people are on teams, like you can't, there's no I in team, my friend. Like it doesn't work that way. I really don't think it does.
I'm a believer in team transparency, being open with each other, not sandbagging deals, not siloing info. I'm all about kind of being open. I can't really work in an environment where you're not open.
No. So it wasn't the right fit for you. I'm glad they didn't.
No, I'm glad it didn't happen. Oh, I'm 100% happy it didn't happen. I mean, if it did, maybe I wouldn't be doing this. So everything happens for a reason.
Sure does.
Where do you see the industry moving, Stacy, in the next, 12 to 18 months? Like we talked a little bit about, buying habits and preferences, but what else do you see in market being something that's going to, benefit us long term?
I think responsible media will become a centerpiece of conversations. This includes sustainable media lowering emissions for the planet, DE&I initiatives, data privacy and regulations. I think, OpenX is we're net zero. That's something I'm really proud of as an organization. But it's interesting when I talk to clients, and the more youthful clients, if that's the way to say it, the younger generation, they lean into that story so much because they care that what they're doing is beyond advertising. They want to know that they're helping the planet or doing something to chip away at the greater cause. We're also partnering. Have you heard of the company Givesly?
No, I've never heard of them.
I have to introduce you to their CEO, Chad Hickley. He's incredible, but he started this organization, and the premise is that responsible media or cause marketing actually performs better. And you can do all sorts of things with Givesly, but the premise is also that they give 5% back to the charity of your choice, which in advertising adds up to a lot.
Yeah, it does.
And they're doing good things for the world. So in general, it just comes up in every conversation. What are you doing for DE&I? Tell me about how sustainable your exchange is, et cetera.
I think the DE&I part is really big. I think that's important. I think the environment is obviously important. There's a few companies out there that have really pushed it hard. You have Brian O'Kelly and what he's doing. Duration Media, which is a sponsor of my Slack channel. I know that they're doing various initiatives, and I'm happy to hear it. Like I'm happy to hear that even these small or even big steps are helping contribute to a better planet, honestly.
When I heard that there's the same amount of carbon emissions for a $10,000 online advertising campaign as a trip from Chicago to London, my head almost exploded. It's wild.
Yeah, you log in, look at all those campaigns, and it gives you an idea.
Yep.
You've obviously been working in an industry and you love it. And I can tell that you love it, and I can tell that you're passionate about it. What keeps you up at night in regards to advertising or ad tech in general?
I know we've talked about this before, but objectivity matters to me so much. So for 8 years at the trade desk, I was taught and I believed that objectivity is more important than anything. You shouldn't grade your own homework. You shouldn't measure your own homework. You shouldn't have both a DSP and an SSP because you will likely send more impressions to your own SSP. And I go back and forth with, will we as an industry really demand transparency, really demand objectivity, or will we just do the easy, cheaper thing? So that goes back and forth in my head a lot.
So you're talking about objectivity, but on the horizontal movement of SSP and DSP. See, I kind of feel the same way when it comes to like inventory quality solutions and buying and selling media. Like there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there. Like I feel like you are grading your own homework. And this has come up a lot over the last, I don't know, year, 2 years. And that's how I feel. Like if I'm going to pick a solution, I want to pick a solution that's not in it to make money, if that makes sense, but rather to save the money and to save the money for my advertisers and for their ad spend to be spent the right way.
Exactly. And if you're going to bias your own inventory, let's not pretend that you don't.
Right. And OpenX doesn't have a DSP today.
We do not.
I think it's you guys and Index Exchange both didn't go down that route, but I think, PubMatic did. Obviously, Trade Desk is DSP working with Publishers Direct through their open path. So it's interesting to see where things are heading and whether that'll continue.
Absolutely. And maybe that's why it keeps me up at night, because we are on the sell side. We believe in objectivity. We believe that you can't be on one floor of a building and saying, we're going to get you the highest CPMs, publisher, and the next floor and say, hey, advertiser, we'll get you the most efficient CPMs. Like, I can't reconcile those things. So I'm hoping the
right.
industry can't either.
Yeah. I would imagine that, you got to pick a side. You just have to pick a side. Are we driving yield and revenue for our publisher, or are we driving performance and ROI for our advertisers? Like, which one is it? Because it's hard to balance the two unless, to be honest, you're hiding a lot of fees and margins.
And if I'm an advertiser, give me whatever impression is going to yield me a greatest return, not what's going to yield you more margin.
Great point, Stacy. I love this conversation, by the way.
I'm sorry, I'm getting heated.
No, I just totally agree. I think it's like you got to pick a side. And I get it. The network model, which is basically what that is, you're buying and selling inventory. And I get it. I just think long term, it may not be the best path for everybody, but who am I? I won't make that decision. I'll let the market decide.
Absolutely.
If there was, one thing that you think that you could leave everybody that's listening today, and I get quite a few listens every episode, so that's not a brag. That's just a real number. Ari Paro, thanks. That's why the numbers were good. What would you like to leave everybody with like a thought that you think would benefit them?
Direct is kind. It took me a long time to learn that being direct with my team, my manager, my peers is the right thing to do, because it can be scary. But if you're honest with your team, you're honest with yourself, you will accelerate your career. I truly believe that. There's so much garbage and ego that gets in the way of our true potential. And if we strip that away, we get there way faster.
I love that. And if there was someone listening that's been in the industry, whether they're brand new or whether they've been in it for, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, what advice would you give them to help them grow in their career and just be better at this industry?
We had a roundtable yesterday internally. There's so much news in our industry. We're in technology. We're in advertising. It is evolving. It is changing. You should be forming your opinions, and you should have a vision for what the industry should look like so that you can take your clients there. And you shouldn't just respond to the market as is.
So this is something that I think this account, me creating this persona, has done for me. I think I've always had a very strong opinion. I might not be the most technical person. I may not be the most knowledgeable person, but I for sure have an opinion. And I think that opinion was not something I was comfortable sharing, but hiding behind a mask, I guess, is what you could say.
But what do you think you were afraid of?
I don't know. I think working at companies, and when you sit down, you have these like incredible engineers, and you have these incredible CMOs and CROs and CTOs and CEOs. You sit in a room and you're invited to this meeting with them, and you sit down in a room and you hear them talk about, 20 years in the industry or 25 years in the industry, leading these companies that have been acquired. I think it's natural for people to sit back and listen, which is what I did, rather than lean in and contribute. And so I think a lot of what I was doing years ago, not as of recently, but years ago, was a lot more of sitting back and absorbing what they were saying, but then being hesitant to speak my opinion. And I think there's a lot of people like that. I know there's a lot of people behind the scenes when we're on a call or like grabbing a beer or having a coffee. I'm like, so much. Why don't you speak up in meetings? And they're like, I don't know. I just don't think it's my place. So for anyone listening, like, speak up. I think people want to hear opinion.
Of course. Like, I can only speak for OpenX, but Slack is a great community. Most companies use it because it gives everyone an equal voice. Speak up. If you're afraid of speaking up in a meeting, speak up in Slack. Everyone's equal. That's
a great pointer. And then, because I'm AdTechGod, do you believe in heaven and an afterlife?
Do I believe in? Well, I've never talked to God more than I have today. Let's see. Do I believe in after? I'd like there to be an afterlife. I don't know is the answer. it's very comforting for me to think that there is one, but I'm not sure that I do believe that.
Do you think that whether there is or is not an afterlife or a heaven, do you think that your contribution on earth is valuable in how you treat people and how you advise people, and that just leaving that memory behind it one day is important?
I like to think so. I think
Me too.
we get what we give, and karma is real.
I think karma's real.
I really think karma's real. And I've been so lucky in my life to have so many good fortunes, and I try to give back, and it just seems to come back as a result. So especially kindness. The other day, have you ever been in a car and the person in front of you in Starbucks gets you your order?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's the best. It's so simple, but of course, that's a good example. I did it for the next person. And then the person after that probably did for the next person. It is contagious to be kind. So there's no reason not to be.
I remember one time that happened at the Starbucks by my house, and somebody was like, this has been going on for like an hour and a half. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's been going on. This is like the longest streak we've ever seen. Usually somebody pulls up and says, oh, what's the price? And they're like, $22. Like, oh, I just ordered a coffee for $4.50. No.
Yeah. No thanks.
But they're like, this has been going on for a long time, which is pretty cool.
Really cool.
Awesome. Well, Stacy, that actually brings us to the end of the podcast. And I want to thank you and thank you to OpenX for having you here. And I wish you the best of luck.
Same to you, AdTechGod. Congrats again.
Thank you, Stacy. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the AdTechGod Pod, a podcast for the people about the people that make AdTech great. Stay connected with me for more insights, trends, and interviews in the realm of AdTech. Don't miss out on our latest updates, so follow me on X, Instagram, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget, ATG Slack community has insights, networking opportunities, and jobs. Keep the conversation going and stay at the forefront of AdTech innovation.